Good evening and welcome to Study Buddy. I am Miss Margi Gujral and I welcome you all buddies to this amazing session of grade 7. I hope you all are wearing all your historian tools and are ready for this session. This is the first chapter of grade 7 and you might be really excited to know how historians are tracing about things which happened thousands of years before. Let us all see in this session and be enlightened with immense knowledge about history, historians, and how do they do the study of various resources. So let's begin, okay? Tracing changes through thousands of years. So what are we going to learn today? We are going to learn difficult terms like cartography, archives, manuscripts, scribes, etc. And you will also be able to relate the present with the past and compare it, and you will also be able to map how it is taking us towards a brighter, better and advanced future. You will also be able to understand how various periods have given us various you can say amenities, comforts or advancement and development, or how one by one our journey towards advancement and towards becoming so high tech, it began somewhere at zero. So every development has to start from some focal point. We are going to learn in history in this session how or what or when and where things happen and how do the studies matter. So here when we are going to deal this time, the main our criteria is going to be maps. See, maps provide us a lot of information and historians in the past also used to make maps. But definitely when you are not aware or you are not having too much high-tech technology, you are not having like present-day gadgets, you have so many powerful satellites today to give you images, to give you all the details. You have the Google Earth. You have various ways in chalking out different countries today. But when we are talking about the time when land boundaries were very difficult to, show or locate on maps, at that time also the historians, when they started doing the work of mapping various places, those people were known as cartographers. So in the past also there were many cartographers. So cartographer basically is a person who makes maps, isn't it? So cartographer, what he does, he makes cartographical design of the land boundaries of various places in the world. So when we look at the 1154 CE, we are talking about the map 1, which is shown in the image. It is at 1154, which is 1154 CE. At that time, it was an Arab geographer, and his name was Al-Idrisi, and it was he who designed this map. Compared to the image 2, which is much more detailed, we can see how nicely it is marked, perfections are visible. So why is image 1 different from image 2? Just see the timeline. 1720, a map of 1720 and a map which was designed in 1154 BC CE, and this is something which is done in just 1720 AD. Of course, there's going to be a mass or huge or very big variation, right? So why this variation? Because entire system of noting down, jotting down and making maps changed, evolved with time, and developments brought more efficiency and the grip became better and cartography became a proper subject. Its tools were also properly used with period and time. People kept on improvising in this area. If we look at this comparison, we can see that the map 2 has made nearly 600 years after. So of course 600 years में बहुत कुछ बदल जाता है, 6 महीने में बहुत कुछ बदल जाता है. 600 years तो बहुत बड़ी बात होती है. Now here you, even in this map, if you look at and you compare it with the present map, you will find the names in image 2 make no sense to you sometimes. कन्नौज, मगध, पाटलिपुत्र, ये आज के टाइम में आपको पता नहीं कौन सी सिटीज के नाम है, क्योंकि ये ओल्डन मैप है. ओके, सो सच थिंग्स ऑल्सो चेंज विथ टाइम. Cities names change, country names change also sometimes, regions and the marking change. Like if you look at the map of 1990 and if you look at the map of 2020 and 23, you will find that the number of states, the number of union territories, everything has evolved in India. There was no Telangana before. There was nothing called Leh, Ladakh, Union Territory. All these things are, every minute changing. So at some point of time, you need to only refresh and upgrade. But after refreshing and upgrading, that is okay. But how do you come to know about those maps when you did not know when the changes happened? At that time, it is very important that you have to relate those maps and understand them with mapping or with tracing lot of other evidences and sources to understand exactly what timeline it is about, what period it is about, the marked words, what chain of events are attached to it, and what sense does this map make. So this is how olden maps are referred with all other references also. Otherwise, we will not know the gist of that entire map. So we look at the areas in the interior of the subcontinent on Earth. Now, if you look at the map of some 200 years ago, it's called subcontinent. 600 years ago, India was huge. India's size was spread and it was almost at the center of the entire Asia, and therefore it was named as subcontinent due to its size. Gradually, so many regions were given away, or it went as a second nation was born as Pakistan. Sri Lanka was no more attached to India. Burma became different. Bangladesh became different. So variations in the topography and the international boundary made things change even for India. So initially India was like a subcontinent country only. So accuracies will also not be very, very perfect, because ultimately a human hand has marked everything. So maybe here and there little bit variations will be there in the output, because that time technology was not very accurate, but whatever accuracy they could manage, it was like a boon to us, because due to those only today we have reached to this. Periods of cartography. So now how do they divide? Majorly two parts have been made, two periods have been made by the cartographers, or you can say historians. One period is termed as when historians read documents, maps and texts from the past. They have to be very, very sensitive at that time, and they have to refer to those backgrounds or contexts which happened with those informations which were there. Okay, only then they are able to understand. So equally important is the fact that the science of cartography differed in two periods. So in two periods it differed. Sometimes, like in present stage, we know what it is, and in olden times we have to relate it to many other events because we were not there at that time. So if the context in which information is produced changes with time, what about language and meaning? So again, जैसे language का मतलब भी change हो जाता है. Many a times if we use those same words, it means different after a certain period of time. So when I look at this word, historical records exist. Historical records exist in a variety of languages which have changed considerably over the years. Medieval Persian, for example, is different from modern Persian. The difference is not just with regard to grammar and vocabulary. The meaning words also change over time. So when we refer to something like, suppose, let me give you a simple example. Nazis, right? Today, if you say that the Hitler times German, everyone will see you with a face like shock, because the kind of Holocaust was done at that time. Nobody is, wanting that era to be repeated, and but when Hitler was there alive and when Germany was under his leadership, at that time Nazi had its own valor and fame. So with time things changed, right? There was a time when India and Pakistan were one. They were living in the same country, fighting together and fighting the British. पर आज की तारीख में we are almost having surgical strikes, terrorist strikes, and we are not or having very good relations with each other. With time, things change, events change, feelings change, names change. Similarly, like in today's world, if you say he's a foreigner, foreigner means he's not born in our country. But if you look at in those times, foreigner, in olden times, anybody who is new is a foreigner. क्योंकि हमने तो नहीं देखा इसको, कहाँ से आए हो, अजनबी हो क्या, ऐसी बातें करते थे ना पहले की ओल्ड फिल्म्स में, अगर आपने देखा हो, सीरियलों में देखा हो. क्योंकि जो भी नया चेहरा होता था, they never needed a face recognition or a biometric like today. Everything was face recognition only for them. They could immediately come to know. इतना छोटा और सिंपल लाइफ होता था. People were familiar with each other. People used to talk to each other. So now let us see new and old terminologies. अच्छा, अब अगर हम ये कहें कि हमारे नाम, जैसे नाम भी चेंज होते रहते हैं, बराबर. So when we are talking about a place like India, Greeks used to call India as India. कुछ लोग उनको, जैसे अरबियन मर्चेंट्स यूज्ड टू कॉल इट हिंदुस्तान. महाभारत के टाइम पे इसको भारत राज्य कहा जाता था. मगर जब वेद व्यास ने वो एपिक लिखा तो उसको महाभारत टाइटल दिया. क्यों महाभारत दिया? क्योंकि भारत था महाभारत. दैट इज वाई महाभारत. सो दिस वे various names have been given by various people and time, and this way we need to understand the era, time. Like people living around the river Ganga, they were called as Gangadhars, or people who were like living near Ganga. So there are various ways of describing a nation, a state, or a person, or its culture, identity, and they keep, these terms also keep on changing with time and with you can say with the understanding of words, like etymology or the word meanings also, reference materials also change. Like अगर पहले के जमाने में किसी को बोलते थे व्हाट्सएप, तो वो कहेंगे व्हाट्सएप कुछ भी तो ऊपर नहीं है, और आज को तो पता है ना व्हाट इज व्हाट्सएप. So it's very difficult for somebody who doesn't use a technological gadget or does not have this app WhatsApp, उसको कुछ टाइम पहले पता नहीं था कि ये क्या व्हाट्सएप है ना. तो वो सोचते होंगे ये क्या व्हाट्सएप करते रहते हैं. So certain terms we do not understand, and there are today's the lingo actually has changed. Bro, now what all you all speak, what abbreviations you all have made, we don't understand. But yes, in near future you never know, that would be the lingo of the town, or the language transformation will happen. So we must be noting such names, changes, and updates, upgradation of words. They are added in dictionary also gradually when new words are emerging, changes in the meanings are happening. So by contrast, in the early 17th century, when Babur used Hindustan to describe the geography, the fauna and the culture of the inhabitants of the subcontinent, as we will see later in the chapter, this was somewhat similar to the way the 14th century poet Amir Khusro used the word Hind, while the idea of a geographical and cultural entity like India did not exist. The term Hindustan did not carry the political and national meanings which we associate it with today. So हर समय में आज अगर हम बोलते हैं हिंदुस्तान, भारत सिर्फ हिंदुओं का स्थान कैसे है? There would be a war, okay, because so many other communities are living in India and we all are Indians. There is nothing like ये Indian कम है या Indian ज्यादा है. So today there could be a debate on such names, because in this democratic setup, equal rights have been given to each and every Indian citizen, and all are following different religions. India is a diverse country, allowing everyone and permitting each one to follow their own faith and practice. So it could become a very big issue. So with time, things and our mindsets change. Now, when we look at historians today, we must be again careful about the word foreigner. As I told you, कि नया आया है या नया दिखता है तो भी आजकल हम उसे अजनबी कहते हैं. Historians use different types of sources to learn about the past, depending upon the period of their study and the nature of their investigation. Last year, for example, you read about the rules of the Gupta dynasty and the Harshvardhana dynasty or king. So in this book, we will be reading about the following 1000 years from 700 to 71550. So basically, if you look at grade 7 now, Grade 6 history is talking about the period of the early Mahajanpads and the early settlements of the kingdoms. When they got the status of Mahajanpads, then they became powerful and there were Rashtrakutas and all that. So basically it is talking about the history up to the end of the 12th century or mid 12th century. But when we are in 7th standard, we are dealing with the history which will be dealing most of the medieval history. So all the Delhi Sultanate and its era and the coming of the Mughals and their establishment and their changes which came, all these is more you can learn in grade 7. Of course, you have your index. We can refer to it in detail. As of now, we can only understand this much, that 700 to 1750, this timeline we will catch and we will be understanding all about it. So archives, when we talk about archives, yes, in olden times there were certain manuscripts, scrolls, barks, leaves used for writing. They used to be preserved either in cloth or in ropes or in some boxes. Later on, when the paper was manufactured by Egyptians, the papyrus, the paper was first invented. Later on, these writings were preserved in certain binding form or in certain boxes. Gradually, binding system also they understood and they started binding those papers or leaves in which they were writing. And gradually came the printing press and blocks were made, dyeing was done or block printing was done of every content which was required on a particular page. And later printing press started and then it got better and better. And today we have e-prints only. We do not need also paper. This is called the journey of the writing areas where mass communication was possible. Like we are talking about archives. So when we talk about archives, see how the preservation centers changed. First there was library. In fact, Amazon's owner, he first started a platform where people can buy books and gradually it became Amazon's selling each and everything. Otherwise it was an online platform where only books were available. So when you are talking about archives, I do not mean it is a library, but basically like a library stores so many written documents. Similarly, archives save all the documented material required for official purposes and they are preserved for a very long time till they find that these might be very, very important. All the government documents are preserved and kept for records to be met with in future. Archives are changed with time. Their preservation policies and systems also kept on changing. But today, if you look at, you have a simple folder and you can shoot it up on Google Cloud also. And that is also an archive, right? So, I hope that archive you know very clearly. Now let us understand manuscripts and scribes. जब जमाने में बहुत कम लोग लिटरेट होते थे तो कैसे लिखना, कैसे लिखवाना, किससे लिखवाना किसी को नहीं पता था. So there were actually specially appointed learned people who were writing the scribes, or they were known as the scribers, who keep writing and producing the manuscripts in the written form. They used to, their job was to do the writing work and they used to get good amount. So many people would be interested in becoming learned, and this way scribes were there and they used to produce all the written work. If you look at the Buddha's age, if you look at his, he used to give oral transmissions or oral teachings, and his 5 disciples used to listen to them and later write them in manuscripts. Now in between these two things, the oral transmission and its meaning will be with the person who speaks, but may not be understood with the same heart and same way by the listener. Or it could be that the writer might have added or deducted 1 or 2 words in a manner of his own understanding. So this way we can say that the past records may not be having the same essence of the person who has written, because the translation or the reproduction of that entire data could vary its entire meaning also at times, and such things used to happen. आप अगर कॉपी करते हैं आपके क्लासरूम में, तो फ्रेंड की बुक में से या किसी की बुक में से कॉपी करते हो, टीचर ने डिक्टेट किया है, हो सकता है आपने कुछ वर्ड मिस किए हो. वो मिस वर्ड जब आपके फ्रेंड ने मिस किया है तो आप भी मिस करोगे, पर आप कॉपी करते करते कुछ वर्ड उसकी समझ में नहीं आए तो आपने भी वो वर्ड नहीं लिखे. So ultimately by the end of the time, the data which is original and the data which is there in your book may not be accurate, right? See, these things used to happen even with the people who used to be writing the scribes. So when you, and it is basically a serious problem, because sometimes what used to happen that we rarely find that the original manuscript of the author, what it meant or what it wanted or is preserved or not, in time and span again, many manuscripts might have decayed, rotted, or got spoilt or looted, whatever. Like if you look at the 28 Lotus Sutra, they were looted, some were thrown away. Hardly some material which was orally transmitted by Buddha is preserved. And this again is in translated. So again the translator's mind also somewhere down the line applies. So as a result, historians have to read different manuscript versions of the same text to guess what the author was originally written. So sometimes the original extracts are the writers may divert its essence, or you can say its gist is, skipped upon. And therefore, when the essence is not up to the requirement, many a times we need to refer various authors' book for the same thing, to come to a real understanding, to debate on those understandings. So on occasion, authors revise their chronicles at different times. Why would they revise? So that they get the accuracy through discussions and they can relate their entire work. Sometimes checking your own work may make you after 2 years or 3 years realize that now my views and ideas are different and I would not have reproduced the same content which I had produced 2 years back. So these are things which we need to keep in mind. With this, I'm concluding. I hope that this information was quick, better to understand, easy to understand. And if at all you have any doubts, do let me know. Of course, you know my number. It is 2512242424. Ask for Margi ma'am, or come and email us, or come to Study Buddies live sessions. Get your doubts solved, and you can always download our app, like, share, and contribute to our growth if you feel that we are making some efforts to make things better. I request you to just give a thumbs up and pass your comments and share with your friends. Have a great time. Study Buddy Margi Gujral now signs off. Have a great time. Bye-bye.